clips of the show, you just go to YouTube, and my channel is Charles Lamson's webcam video, and yeah, just go to my channel, and you'll see a bunch of clips from previous shows, and like I said, I usually cut out a lot of the music and stuff, so it's just like 10 to 15 minutes of the good stuff. But alright, so yeah, I think I'm getting off of the Anunnaki and Reptoid stuff. I think I covered that pretty thoroughly. Yeah, because I actually started doing it a couple days ago, and so it was actually more of like a series of shows, because I wanted to thoroughly cover this this notion of ancient astronauts, and I guess I couldn't really be complete without considering this notion of this being an actual holographic universe, and the fact that we live in a hologram. It's pretty interesting. But I'm gonna check out the switchboard one more time here, just to make sure I'm not. Oh shoot! It logged me out. How dare they? Okay, cool. All right, so yeah, I'd like to explore this notion of a holographic universe a little bit. I guess one of the main dudes in this area, his name is Michael Talbot, and yeah, he lived from didn't live for a very long time. He lived from 1953 to 1992, and however, the guy was pretty freaking smart, and he was the author of a number of books highlighting parallels between ancient mysticism and quantum mechanics. I guess that's becoming more and more popular nowadays, I guess with the likes of Deepak Chopra and guys like that. They try to back up their various theories of the power of intention with quantum physics, that type of thing. And so this guy, Michael Talbot, he put together a theoretical model of reality, which suggested that the physical universe is actually a giant hologram. And yeah, he actually wrote a book called The Holographic Universe. And now, so Talbot made many references to the work of David Bohm, Carl Pribram, and yeah, so the work of Bohm and Pribram are largely influenced Michael Talbot in his book, The Holographic Universe. And okay, let's go back to 1982. Something remarkable happens. At the University of Paris, there's a research team, and it's led by physicist Alain Aspect, and they performed what turned out to be one of the most important experiments of the 20th century. Right, you did not hear, yeah, you didn't hear about this on the evening news. In fact, unless you are in the habit of reading scientific journals, you probably have never heard of Aspect's name. However, there are some who believe this discovery may change the face of science. This guy performed, this Aspect guy, he performed a consciousness experiment, and which had actually been devised by Albert Einstein and his colleagues Polsky and Rosen, because they wanted to disprove quantum mechanics on the basis of something called the Pauli exclusion principle. I mean, you got to be pretty much into mathematics to know what I'm talking about here, and special relativity. So, in this experiment. Aspect and his team, they discovered that under certain circumstances, subatomic particles such as electrons are able to instantaneously communicate with each other, regardless if there is a distance separating them. It doesn't matter if they are 10 feet apart or 10 billion miles apart. Somehow, each particle always seems to know what the other is doing. The problem with this feat is that it violates Einstein's long-held tenet that no communication can travel faster than the speed of light. Since traveling faster than the speed of light is tantamount to breaking the time barrier, this has caused some physicists to try to come up with some pretty wild ways to explain away Aspect's findings. But it has also inspired some pretty wild, radical stuff. That's where quantum physics really starts becoming big with this guy. And so there's a guy at the University of London, a professor, and the guy named David Bohm I was talking about earlier. And he believes that this French guy Aspect's findings imply that objective reality does not exist, and that despite its apparent solidity, the universe is at heart a phantasm or an illusion. It's just one big, gigantic, detailed hologram. And to understand why Bohm makes this assertion, one must first understand a little bit about a hologram. What is the definition of hologram? A hologram is a three-dimensional photograph made with the aid of a laser. For all practical purposes. And so to make a hologram, the object to be photographed is first bathed in the light of a laser beam. Then a second laser beam is bounced off the reflected light of the first, and the resulting interference pattern, the area where the two laser beams come together, is captured on film. So when this hologram is developed, this film is developed, it looks like a meaningless swirl of light and dark lines. But as soon as the film is illuminated by another laser beam, a three-dimensional image of the original object appears. So it's pretty remarkable. Three-dimensionality of such images is not only a remarkable characteristic of holograms. If a hologram of a rose is cut in half and then illuminated by a laser, each half will still be found to contain the entire image of the rose. And also, if the halves are divided again, each snippet of film will always be found to contain a smaller but intact version of the original image. So unlike normal photographs, every part of a hologram contains all the information. Every part of a hologram contains all the information possessed by the whole. It's pretty heady stuff, but interesting though. So this might actually take a couple shows to go over. It's pretty complex stuff, but I'd like to explore it because, like I said, I guess the last 3 or 4 days I wanted to completely cover this aspect of this notion of ancient astronauts, and these theories have been coming up a lot lately, I guess within the last 20 years or so. I mean before that, but I guess they've been becoming more popular in the last 20 years ago. And then that is that I think one theory I read, we were talking about Atlantis earlier, and there were supposedly a lot of these holograph believers that believe in a holographic universe claim that these beings called the Zeptepi, Zeptepi, came to Earth when Atlantis was still around, and they created basically a holographic projection and on this planet, and that to this day we are in that holographic projection. I'll go into that some other day, but about the Zeptepi and the Atlantis connection. But so a hologram teaches us that some things in the universe may not lend themselves to this approach. If we try to take apart something constructed holographically, we will not get the pieces of which it is made. We will only get smaller holes. Okay, so Bohm, who is the English guy who inspired Aspect, I'm sorry, Bohm and Aspect inspired the guy who wrote Holographic Universe. Yeah, Bohm, the English professor, he believes that the reason subatomic particles are able to remain in contact with one another regardless of the distance separating them is not because they are sending some sort of mysterious signal back and forth, but because their separateness is an illusion. He argues that at some deeper level of reality, such particles are not individual entities, but are actually extensions of the same fundamental something. And this fundamental connectedness would correlate with the fifth element and its mathematical proof. Okay, blah blah blah. Yeah, that gets a little complex. So, and yeah, so to better visualize what we're saying here, Bohm offers the following illustration. You imagine an aquarium containing a fish, and imagine also that you are unable to see the aquarium directly, and your knowledge about it and what it contains comes from two television cameras, one directed at the aquarium's front and the other directed at its side. As you stare at the two television monitors, you might assume that the fish is on each of the screen. You might assume that the fish on each of the screens are separate entities. After all, because the cameras are set at different angles, each of the images will be slightly different. But as you continue to watch the two fish, you will eventually become aware that there is a certain relationship between them. When one turns, the other also makes a slightly different but corresponding turn. When one faces the front, the other always faces toward the side. If you remain unaware of the full scope of the situation, you might even conclude that the fish must be instantaneously communicating with one another. But this is clearly not the case. Wow, that was a pretty good example. Cleared it up for me, but and I hope it cleared it up for you as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I'm not leaving any colors out. Okay, I'm not. And check the YouTube thing real fast. Wow, 1344. All right.